All right, so today I want to talk to you guys about something called brain dumping. Brain dumping has been really beneficial for people who always get stuck in their head, thinking about 50 different things at once. It's very easy for you to get caught up stressing about this thing, that thing, like just so many things, right? And with that, what happens when you get caught up in your own head? Usually, people start to freak out because they can't go to sleep, or they wake up and they're stressing, or they just can't seem to do anything. You get paralysis by analysis. Yeah. The way you can fix that is by brain dumping, and that basically just means start writing stuff out. Okay, anything that's in your head should not be stored in your head, especially if it's on a loop. And when I say it's on a loop, it's the same thing going around in your head again and again and again, and you just can't seem to stop thinking about it. That's a loop that needs to be what's the word I'm trying to think of? Not broken, fulfilled. Like, it needs to be finished. Okay, the way you do that is you start to write about it. When you write, you get things out of your head and you are able to form proper sentences. Because when you think about stuff in your head, like, even though you're probably thinking certain ways and you might be like, well, I do think in complete sentences, there are things that are just zip, zip, zip all over the place. And you're like, you can't even catch your thoughts. Like, literally, when I say catching your thoughts, like, there's so many going past you and there's so many thoughts going on where, again, it's like, oh, I got to pick up the kids from this and then I got to go in this. And it's like, not really a complete sentence. So write it out and start to get things into sentences. When you clearly write things out and you're able to structure them, one, it's out of your head. Two, you're now able to see if there is a problem or if you need to do something with that because it's now out of your head, right? When I say write, you can type it if you want to type it. Like, I type things out on my Google Notes. My notes on my Apple, what's that, Apple Watch, whatever it's called. My notes app, that's what I'm trying to say. You just type out, what are you thinking about right now? What are you stressing about? Write it out. Oh, I'm stressing about, I got to do this work assignment, blah, blah, blah. And when you write it out, you're probably going to look at it and be like, oh, actually, you know what? That's not stressful. All I have to do is this. Or again, you've got 60 things to do. You write it out and you brain dump it out. Then you can prioritize things. The worst thing you can do is just keep letting it go around in your head again and again, and then feeling like you're just overwhelmed and you can't do anything. Like, that's not going to help you at all. If anything, it's going to fucking cause more of an issue because you're just letting it constantly sit in your mind, and you can't have you can have conscious thoughts. You can't have structured thoughts about actions you actually should be taking, or taking any more information, or think about anything constructively, because you're stuck in this loop endlessly. Someone's talking to you and you're like thinking about what else is going on in your brain. It's like, you got to get that stuff out. Especially if you are laying in bed and you're thinking about stuff going to bed, write it out. That'll get it out of your head so you're not waking up and thinking about it. If you wake up and you are thinking about stuff, write it out, or again, type it out, whatever. But the biggest thing you can do is to start to write it all out and get it out of your head, and then you can decide what you want to do with it. Do you need to write about this later on? Is that it? Is it done? Is it out of your head? Pardon me. Do you need to create action steps from it? Do you need to file it somewhere? Is it a to-do list you got to deal with tomorrow? Is it something you can deal with tomorrow? Like, you write out and you're like, I've got to do this task and this task and this task, and it's 10 o'clock at night. Is there any realistic chance you're going to work on this tonight? And you're like, no. Okay, well, these are your to-do list tomorrow. You've already written it down there. Is there anything else that you need to write down? And you think about it for a few, 30 seconds. You're like, no, I think that's it. Okay, well, you know what you're going to do tomorrow, all right? And you're like, oh, fuck, but I've got to do this before I do this. Okay, well, then you write that out. And then you just are able to go to sleep. Because weirdly enough, you probably thought about that exact thing in your head, but because it wasn't clear and concise and structured well, and also just wasn't written out for somebody to see, like, basically it's now physical material in a way versus stuff in your head, it was stressing you out. So get it out of your head, because I can guarantee you when you get it out of your head, it's going to help you manage things a lot better. It doesn't have to be perfect. No one else is going to read this. It doesn't have to be exact grammar. It's just like writing out a few sentences, or however many sentences you've got to do, just to give yourself some structure. Okay? It's been a big helping point for me, especially. I just diarize every day. At the end of every day, I just write about shit. How was my day? What did I do well? What didn't I do well? Am I stressing about anything? Did a thought come to my head that I want to write about and kind of explore? Like, and then you can just look and you're like, oh, all right, okay, that's cool. And like, some of the shit I write, I'm like, oh, well, fuck, don't worry about that. Or it doesn't make sense or whatever it is, but I'm like, I got it out of my head, and it kind of just clears that head noise. So give that a go. I think it's really, really good for head noise. I think it'll help. And yeah, if you guys have any questions about that, you can message me on Instagram at tysonthetrainerr. And funnily enough, there's links in the description that you can just click now and go straight to my page if you did have any questions. So I'll speak to you next time.